The DC Universe is a realm of heroes with extraordinary powers, but behind every cape and every mask, there is deep pain. Today, we're going to look at 10 of the saddest deaths in the DC Universe, moments that not only broke our hearts as readers, but permanently changed the ethics, path, and stories of the great heroes. These aren't just deaths, they are the cornerstones of bigger narratives. Are you ready? Because this video isn't going to be a happy trip. Number 10. Dawn Hall. Dawn Hall, known as Dove, was the symbol of peace and calmness and one of the two core members of the Hawk and Dove team. The tragedy of his death lies in the massive Crisis on Infinite Earths event. At the height of the battle, Dawn sacrificed his life to protect a bus full of innocent people from a destructive attack by the Shadow Force. This sacrifice peaked in an instant and was over. His death turned the concept of peace into a heavy burden for his brother, Hawk, and showed that even symbols of peace must pay a heavy price in the biggest wars. The impact of Dove's death was seen for years afterward in his brother's complex character development, as Hawk was forced to cope with his own rage without his brother's calming presence. Number 9. Marion Grange. The death of Mayor Grange in the No Man's Land event might not have been as shocking as a superhero's death, but it symbolized a profound tragedy. After a major earthquake, Gotham was abandoned by the government and turned into a war zone and lawless area. Mayor Grange bravely tried to negotiate and save her city from the complete collapse it had become. Unfortunately, she was killed by a ruthless assassin named Jim Craddock. Her death showed that when social order collapses, even good people in the highest positions aren't safe. Mayor Grange's death proved Batman's inability to preserve the city's structure in the most bitter way possible, and established a sense of despair across all of Gotham. Number 7. Arthur Curry Jr. This death is one of the darkest and most ruthless moments in DC history because there was no heroic sacrifice involved. Arthur Curry Jr., the innocent son of Aquaman and Mera, was killed by his father's main enemy, Black Manta, in a deliberate and vengeful act. Black Manta sealed the child in an oxygen-tight chamber, and Aquaman couldn't get there in time to save him. This tragedy not only destroyed Aquaman and Mera's marriage for years, but also showed that the underwater kingdom is not safe from human hatred and harm. The incident mentally destroyed Mera and Aquaman for years, and became one of the main reasons for the deepening tragedy in his life. This moment will never fade from the fans' minds. Number 6. Andrea Brandage. This case is perhaps the most bitter death for Bruce Wayne as it relates to the life he gave up to become Batman. Andrea Brandage was the love of Bruce Wayne's life and the only person who could pull him back from the path of becoming the Dark Knight. In the animated movie The Mask of the Phantasm, Bruce was ready to give up being Batman and marry Andrea, but the tragic death of Andrea's parents at the hands of criminals led her to become a vengeful assassin known as the Phantasm and leave him behind. The tragedy here is that Bruce lost the most important love of his life to protect Gotham and couldn't protect her. Every time Batman thinks about this lost love, it's a reminder of how far ordinary life has drifted from him.
6. Mary Marvel. Mary Marvel, Shazam's Billy Batson's foster sister, was always a symbol of purity and innocence in the DC universe. Her powers were granted to her by 6 immortal heroes. But in the Darkseid War event, Mary was captured by Darkseid and brought under his control. She turned into a powerful and evil version that was a serious threat to the whole world. The most tragic moment was when Billy Batson, Shazam, had no choice but to kill his sister to save the world. This decision was one of the most painful in comic book history and left Billy with permanent guilt. Her death was essentially the death of innocence, highlighting the bitter truth that no one is safe from the corruption of power. 5. Aquaman. Aquaman was one of the heroes who was often mocked over the years, but his death in the battle against the evil enemy, Neron, changed everything. Aquaman sacrificed his life to save his people in Atlantis. Even though he eventually returned to life, the moment of his death was very painful and showed the depth of responsibility and sacrifice of this underwater hero. Before his death, he had already lost his hand in a battle with a piranha-like creature. This death turned Aquaman from a comic book joke into a true tragic hero who was willing to make any sacrifice to protect his kingdom. This moment was a shock to fans and brought new respect for the character. 4. Maxwell Lord. This death was a tragedy for the entire Justice League, not just for Maxwell Lord. Maxwell Lord had mind control abilities and brought Superman under his control to force him to kill Wonder Woman. In a decisive moment, Wonder Woman had no choice but to kill Maxwell Lord to save Superman and, consequently, the world. The tragedy here is that this act shattered all of Wonder Woman's ethical principles and pitted her against Batman and Superman. Wonder Woman was forced to break her greatest moral rule to save the world. This moment was a wake-up call that showed even the greatest heroes might be forced to commit irreparable acts. 3. Jonathan Kent. Perhaps one of the most personal and tragic deaths was the death of Superman's adopted father, Jonathan Kent. John Kent was an ordinary man who dedicated his life to raising Clark and turning him into a symbol of hope. His death from a heart attack, or illness, depending on the continuity, showed that even the strongest man in the world cannot resist fate and natural death. The main tragedy and grief is that Clark, with all his power, was completely helpless against this death. This death removed one of the main ethical pillars of Superman and turned him into the superhero of today who constantly feels helpless against injustice. He couldn't save the person who gave him life. 2. Jason Todd/Robin. This death is the main dark spot in Batman's history and his most tragic failure. Jason Todd, the second Robin, was a rebellious and fiery character. In the comic A Death in the Family, he was beaten to near death with a crowbar by the Joker and then killed in an explosion. The most tragic part is that Batman, for the first and last time, could not save the one who was under his wing. This psychological blow never left Batman's soul and drove him to the brink of madness. His death kept Bruce Wayne in the clutches of guilt for years and directly led to the creation of dark characters like Red Hood. This moment showed that even the Dark Knight is vulnerable.
1. Superman. The story of Superman's death, 1992, told in the comic The Death of Superman, is perhaps the saddest and most iconic death in comic book history. The tragedy of this death was the loss of the symbol of hope for humanity. Superman sacrificed his life to stop the uncontrollable monster, Doomsday. In an epic battle that shook the heart of Metropolis, Superman destroyed Doomsday with his last breath. This sacrifice stopped the entire DC universe and showed the depth of the main hero's devotion. The moment Lois Lane held his lifeless body was an enduring image. Although Superman returned, this death proved forever how much he is willing to sacrifice for a world that fears him. As you saw, the DC universe is full of pain and sacrifice. These deaths aren't just story events, they are the foundation for great characters like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Death reminds the heroes that even with extraordinary powers, they are still vulnerable. Alright guys, that's our list of the 10 saddest deaths in the DC universe. Which death do you think was the most tragic? Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you like this kind of video, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on new videos. Until the next video, take care.